So now that we've managed to safely convert whatever text is inside our display label to a double and store it inside this constant number, then the next step is to use that number and perform the calculation that triggered this calc button pressed. So we can figure out the calculation method by tapping into the sender.currentTitle. So this will be the string that corresponds to whichever of these buttons were pressed. And remember again, current title is an optional string. So we're going to use optional binding again to say if let calc method equal to sender.currentTitle, then we're going to say if the calc method is equal to the text of the button, that is plus/minus, then in that case, we want to flip the sign of the number. So we're going to set the display label.text to equal our number that we've converted over here, and we're going to multiply it by -1. So that means that if the number that we entered was 8, then when we press this button, it should turn it into -8 by multiplying it by -1. Now, the maths work out, but we have an error here that says cannot assign value of type double to type string. So this right-hand side of the equation is going to be a double because it's a double multiplied by a double. And the left-hand side, however, is expecting a string. Because it's the text for the display label. So in this case, we're going to have to cast this double into a string. And as we mentioned before, this never fails. You can always turn a number into a string. So now if we run our app and test it, you can see that if I type a number, say 89, and I press this button, then it becomes -89. And if I press it again, it becomes +89 again. So now that we've got this working, here's a challenge for you. I want you to make these other two buttons work. Remember that whenever I press the AC button, it should revert the display back to 0. And whenever I press the percentage button, it should take the current value and divide it by 100. So once you're ready, pause the video and try to complete that challenge. Okay, so now that we've really got one of these methods established, it's not so hard to write out the code for the other ones. So let's add an else if and say if the calc method is instead equal to AC, then that means that we actually want our display label.text to simply just read 0. So we're going to add a string that is 0, and that already sorts out that particular case. Now finally, if we have another calc method that was equal to the percentage sign, then in this case, we simply want to divide the number by 100. Or alternatively, if you wish, you can also multiply it by 0.01. It does the same thing. So in this case, we're going to set the display label dot text to equal number times 0.01, and we of course have to turn this double into a string. So now let's run our app, and let's say 89 as a percentage is 0.89. And then if we turn it into a negative and we press the AC button to clear our screen, and you can see everything is working. So now we've sorted out these top 3 buttons. Now there's just one slight problem. You see we've got this decimal point here, and if I wanted to write 2.3, then this becomes a double, that is 2.3. But I can also press this button again, and I've got 2.3.6, which is not a mathematical number. I don't even know what that is. So we have to ensure that this doesn't happen. And that is what we're going to address in the next lesson.